He had lived his entire life in the orbit of one man, a comfortable, gilded existence under the care of the brilliant neighbor who had taken him in after his parents' sudden death. For 8 years, they had been everything to each other. Now that man, Julian Croft, was a titan of finance, a name whispered with reverence on Wall Street, and Leo, his ward, enjoyed a life of effortless luxury. Then, one quiet afternoon, a voice bloomed in his mind, cold and clinical, informing him that this world was a novel. Julian was the male lead, and he, Leo, was the disposable side character, fated to be a casualty in Julian's great romance. The voice, which called itself the system, laid out the plot with dispassionate clarity. Leo would become infatuated with the female lead, pursuing her with a foolish intensity that would alienate Julian. The two men who had been like brothers would become enemies, and Leo would be exiled from the life he knew, left with nothing. The system offered a hollow consolation, reminding him that he and Julian weren't bound by blood, only by a debt of gratitude Julian felt he owed. Once the mission was complete, they could move to a new world, a place of immense wealth where no one could control him. Leo was silent for a long moment before he asked if, in that new world, he would be richer than Julian. The system assured him he would be. That was all he needed to hear. He asked where he could find this woman. He was suddenly very eager to fall in love at first sight. The woman, Chloe Sanders, was at a high-end financial printing center in Midtown Manhattan, a place notorious in finance circles for its around-the-clock work on IPO filings. Emerging from the elevator, Leo was met with a scene of controlled chaos. It was the last day for Sangban project submissions, and the center buzzed with the frantic energy of a trading floor, a sea of analysts in wrinkled shirts and exhausted associates. He navigated the crowded hall to a conference room, confirming with the system that this was the right place. He was told Chloe was inside, desperately searching for a lost document her colleague had misplaced. It was the perfect opportunity for a heroic entrance. He knocked twice before pushing the door open. The room was a disaster zone, with documents piled on the table and scattered across the floor. A young woman in a sharp business suit was on her hands and knees, heedless of her appearance as she rifled through stacks of paper. A man's anxious voice emanated from her phone, which was on speaker. He lamented that with less than 6 hours until the deadline and internal approvals still needed, months of their relentless work would be for nothing. If the project failed, he would be the first one fired. Chloe cut him off with a sharp command to be quiet and calm down. Her voice then softened, becoming a steady, reassuring force. She promised to be back at the office within the hour with the file, assuring him the submission would be made on time. She ended the call and finally looked up at Leo, her beautiful, intelligent face etched with a questioning look. Leo offered a disarming smile, explaining that the manager had mentioned she'd lost something and might need help. Chloe's eyes did a quick, assessing sweep of him before she accepted his offer. After she described the missing file, he joined the search. Together, they sifted through the chaos, and it wasn't long before they located the errant document. A wave of relief washed over Chloe's face. She thanked him profusely and rushed out. Leo followed, seeing her trying to hail a cab in the midday Manhattan gridlock. He suggested he could give her a ride. Recognizing the futility of the long queue on her rideshare app, she gratefully accepted, sliding into the passenger seat of his car. A press of the accelerator and they were slicing through traffic, arriving at her company's skyscraper in what felt like an instant. As she hurried into the building, waving a final thank you, Leo leaned against his car, ready to disappear as mysteriously as he had arrived. But a voice called his name. It was Ethan Vance, president of Sheenha Securities and Chloe's ultimate boss, but more importantly, one of Julian's closest friends. "Ethan," impeccably dressed in a tailored suit and gold-rimmed glasses, held a paper cup of coffee and regarded Leo with an amused expression. Leo greeted him politely. Ethan gestured with his head towards the building, his tone teasing as he commented on Leo chasing romance all the way to his firm, threatening to tell Julian. Leo quickly pleaded with him not to, explaining that Julian was incredibly busy and shouldn't be bothered with such trivial matters. Ethan reached out to ruffle his hair, but Leo ducked away. Unfazed, Ethan simply smiled, remarking that Leo had grown up and learned to be considerate. Leo put on his most charming face, insisting he had always been considerate of his brother. Ethan promised to keep his secret. Back at the penthouse, the housekeeper had already prepared lunch. Leo ate alone, then spent the afternoon in a university webinar and working on research for a paper. At 10:30, he was in bed, ready for sleep, when the system spoke again, its tone laced with suspicion. It found his behavior highly unusual. According to its data, a character like him should have been at a club, drinking and causing trouble. It was perplexed by his quiet, disciplined routine. Leo feigned innocence, apologizing for the disappointment and sarcastically offering to get up. The system, placated by his supposed cooperation, magnanimously allowed him to sleep, suggesting he could resume his rebellious persona tomorrow. After a few more meaningless exchanges, Leo drifted off to sleep. He was awoken sometime past midnight by faint noises from the hallway. A sliver of light escaped from under Julian's study door. Inside, voices were in a low, intense discussion. Leo pushed the door open and called out his brother's name. The four people in the room fell silent, turning to look at him. He stood there in silk pajamas, yawning, a stark contrast to their sharp business attire. They were deep in the throes of negotiating a contract. Julian, who had been sitting in a large leather armchair, rose and strode towards him. Even after what must have been a grueling day, his handsome, sharp features showed no trace of fatigue. He was dressed in a perfectly fitted dark blue suit that gave him an air of formidable authority. He stopped in the doorway, his large frame blocking the light and the curious gazes of his colleagues. Looking down at Leo, his voice was warm as he asked why he was still awake. Leo stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Julian's waist, resting his chin on the solid expanse of his chest. He blinked sleepily, murmuring that he had woken up and noticed Julian had somehow gotten even more handsome in the few days he'd been gone. A low chuckle rumbled in Julian's chest. He patted Leo's back gently, his voice a soft reprimand about him still acting like a child. In the study, one of the younger associates commented loudly on how good-looking the boss's brother was, comparing him to a celebrity. The other two colleagues shot the man a glare. Julian ignored the comment, turning his head slightly to instruct his team to continue the discussion. Then, with an arm securely around Leo, he guided him back to his bedroom. Julian watched him get back into bed and was about to leave when Leo caught the hem of his jacket. Julian turned back, his expression softening. Leo asked if he would be gone again by the time he woke up. A flicker of guilt crossed Julian's face. He walked over and sat on the edge of the bed, his long legs folded casually. He gently stroked Leo's hair, his voice low with apology. He explained that the cross-border acquisition was demanding, and he regretted neglecting him. He offered to buy Leo anything he wanted. Leo shifted, hugging Julian's arm and pressing close. He said that all he wanted was for Julian to stay with him until he fell asleep. A resigned, fond smile touched Julian's lips. He agreed, holding Julian's strong arm, the familiar scent of his cologne filling his senses. Leo felt a wave of nostalgia. For a moment, he was back in their tiny room in the old tenement building, a thunderstorm raging outside, the warmth and solidity of Julian's presence a shield against the world. As sleep began to claim him, he told Julian he had a secret. Julian prompted him gently. Leo beckoned him closer. Amused, Julian leaned in, bringing his ear to Leo's lips. In a barely audible whisper, Leo confessed that he had fallen for someone. Julian's body went still. He slowly turned to look at Leo, whose eyes were heavy-lidded. Leo managed a dopey, almost drunken smile before his eyes fluttered shut and he fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, Julian was gone. The housekeeper informed him he'd already left for the office. At the breakfast table, however, was a strawberry cheesecake from a famous bakery, a new seasonal special. The driver mentioned that Julian had personally brought it back from a trip to Chicago, just for him. Leo ate half a slice, the rich, creamy texture failing to tempt his subdued appetite. For his elective class that morning, he chose the understated Audi from the garage. At a red light, the system's voice, silent for hours, startled him. It declared him a codependent brother worshiper. Leo suppressed a laugh at its dramatic, world-weary tone. The system grew agitated, claiming it had spent the entire night analyzing their timeline. It accused him of being completely out of character. It complained that he should be driving an Aston Martin, making a scene, not this discreet sedan. The word subtle was not supposed to be in his vocabulary. It seemed his literary counterpart was a pure caricature of new money tastelessness. Leo calmly reasoned that his personality was irrelevant. The core conflict, the rivalry between brothers, was the important part of the plot. After a long pause, the system conceded his point. A straightforward romance lacked suspense. A dramatic love triangle was far more compelling. At the university, his friend Ryan rushed over, buzzing with excitement. He asked if it was true that Julian was acquiring a major German bank, mentioning it was all over the Wall Street Journal. The finance majors at their school were treating Julian, an alumnus, like a returning god. Ryan added that his father, a dean, wanted to invite Julian to give a speech. Leo said it was unlikely, as he'd barely seen Julian lately. Ryan then conspiratorially asked if, amidst all this, Julian had time to find a girlfriend. He mentioned his sisters were all admirers and proposed they play matchmaker. What was Julian's type? Leo looked at him with a half-smile and replied that Julian liked quiet, gentle types. Ryan's face lit up. He had an aunt who was a teacher, a perfect fit. Leo continued, adding that it would be best if she also looked like Anne Hathaway. Ryan's expression fell. Leo laughed, admitting he was joking. He told Ryan not to waste his time. The only thing Julian was in love with was his work. After class, a message from Chloe appeared on his phone. She was happy to report that, thanks to him, their project had been successfully filed. She offered to treat him to dinner another day to celebrate. Leo replied immediately, suggesting they make it today. He would meet her at her office for lunch. A few minutes later, she responded that she was no longer at Shinha but at Ethel Capital, pitching another project. She had a 1-hour break for lunch and proposed they grab a quick bite nearby if he didn't mind. Leo stared at the name of the firm for a few seconds. Ethel Capital was Julian's company. He texted back, "Okay." In the sleek lobby of one of the city's most prestigious office buildings, Julian's assistant, Ada, was waiting for him. She greeted him with a warm smile, assuming he was there to have lunch with his brother. She offered to book them a table, but Leo, handing her a box of pastries, told her not to worry about it. He wandered the floor and paused by a glass-walled conference room where a man was passionately presenting a slideshow to a group of executives. Near the wall, a young woman with a graceful neck turned at his soft tap on the glass. It was Chloe. She excused herself and stepped out, a surprised smile on her face. She joked about his impressive ability to get into any building he pleased. He suggested she call him Leo. She asked if he had met with the partners yet. He said he hadn't. Chloe gestured down the hall to a larger conference room, explaining that they had been in a meeting since morning, apparently hitting a snag in an acquisition deal. As if on cue, Leo nodded thoughtfully. He pulled a small jewelry box from his pocket and handed it to her, a preemptive congratulatory gift for her project's success. She protested, insisting she should be the one giving him a gift. He opened the small velvet box, revealing a delicate silver chain bracelet. Taking her hand gently but firmly, he fastened it around her wrist. He complimented her on the trust she'd shown a stranger, saying it restored his faith in humanity and deserved a small token of appreciation. Charmed by his words, Chloe laughed and accepted the gift, promising to treat him to a lavish meal soon. As they were talking, the door to the large conference room opened. A group of men in suits emerged, led by Julian, who was speaking in a low, serious tone to the person beside him. His expression was stern until his gaze landed on Leo. A subtle shift occurred, the hard lines of his mouth softening into a hint of a smile. Leo waved. Julian strode over, his voice warm as he asked how long he'd been waiting. It was only then that Julian's eyes fell on Chloe, and then on the distinctive blue box in her hand. A barely perceptible frown creased his brow before he smoothly introduced himself as Leo's brother. Chloe, momentarily flustered, managed a professional introduction. Julian then turned back to Leo, stating it as a fact that Miss Sanders was too busy to have lunch with him, and that he should eat with his brother instead. Just then, an investment director emerged from the conference room and asked Chloe if they could discuss some financial questions over lunch. At the restaurant, Leo sullenly pushed food around his plate. Julian watched him for a moment before asking with a small smile if he was angry. Leo denied it, muttering that it wasn't Julian's fault the director had taken her away. The smile faded from Julian's face. He asked if this was the person Leo had told him about. Leo's face flushed, and he instinctively moved to cover Julian's mouth, telling him not to say such things. Julian gently pulled his hand away, his gaze intense. He questioned how Leo could like someone he'd only met the day before, asking what he really knew about her. Leo stared back, surprised. He demanded to know how Julian knew they had just met, accusing him of investigating him. Julian's expression hardened as he countered, asking if Leo was afraid of being investigated. The unfairness of the accusation left Leo speechless. After a tense silence, Julian explained that he hadn't investigated him. Someone from Rebel Edge, a streetwear brand Julian had invested in, had seen them at the printing center and mentioned it during a conference call. Realizing his mistake, Leo immediately apologized. Julian let out a cold snort, calling him a little traitor who sided with outsiders after all he'd done for him. Seeing Julian's displeasure, Leo leaned over and wrapped an arm around his neck appeasingly. Julian ignored him, taking a slow sip of water. When Leo was about to pull away in defeat, a large hand clamped around his waist, and in one smooth motion, Leo found himself settled on Julian's lap. He let out a startled cry and punched Julian lightly on the chest. Julian threw his head back and laughed, a deep, genuine sound. He remarked that Leo used to love sitting there as a child, climbing onto his lap to sleep when he worked late. Mortified, Leo tried to cover Julian's mouth again, threatening to post old, embarrassing photos of him online. Julian held up his hands in surrender. He then said with mock seriousness that enough people already coveted his mind. There was no need to tempt them with his body. Leo's eyes widened in disbelief at his audacity. Their playful scuffle was interrupted by a knock. A young waitress entered and stopped short, her face flushing crimson as she saw them. She stammered that his strawberry milkshake was ready. Leo tried to move back to his own chair, but Julian's hand held him firmly in place. Julian coolly instructed her to leave it on the table. After she left, Leo sipped his milkshake, acutely aware of the hard muscle of Julian's thigh beneath him. He shifted slightly and was rewarded with a light smack from Julian, who told him to stop moving. He shot Julian an annoyed look over the rim of his glass. When he finished the drink, Julian asked if it was good. Before Leo could answer, Julian reached up and wiped a smudge of cream from his lip with his thumb. He brought the thumb to his own lips, tasting it. "Not bad," he murmured, annoyed at being treated like a child, yet feeling a blush creep up his neck. Leo blurted out that Julian was a hypocrite for forbidding him from dating when he didn't date himself. The smile faded from Julian's eyes. He toyed with Leo's fingers, his voice slow and deliberate as he said he wasn't forbidding anything. He was just worried Leo would get hurt by a fleeting infatuation. Leo looked at him earnestly, insisting that Chloe was a good person. Julian held his gaze for a long moment before his expression softened. He asked Leo to promise him he would start as friends, to get to know her properly before considering anything more. Reluctantly, Leo agreed. On the way home, he received a message from Chloe, apologizing profusely for lunch. The pitch to Ethel Capital had unexpectedly gained serious traction. She promised to make it up to him. He replied cheerfully, joking that his bracelet must have brought her good luck, and that he was looking forward to a celebration dinner. He put the phone down and the system spoke, its tone grave. It felt that the male lead was hostile towards the female lead. Leo was surprised, asking if it wasn't just curiosity. The system was certain it was hostility. He laughed. The system asked what he found so funny. Leo explained the classic literary trope of Pride and Prejudice, where initial antagonism gives way to an irresistible attraction. He chided the system for its lack of literary taste. The system fell silent, seemingly deep in thought, before defensively stating that it never said such a plot development was bad. A week passed with no sign of Julian, who had flown to Germany to finalize the acquisition. The system grew anxious about the lack of progress in the main romance plotline. One evening, Leo received a call from Chloe. Her voice was strained against a backdrop of loud music and raucous laughter. She asked if he was busy. A man's voice in the background drunkenly urged her to invite her friend over to join the party. Leo's brow furrowed. He asked where she was and who she was with. She explained it was a work dinner. He stood up and headed for the garage, telling her to send him the address. He found her in a private room at a karaoke bar, being pressured to drink by several sleazy-looking men. She downed a glass of liquor, her cheeks flushed, and loudly announced his arrival, asking if Julian had brought him. She then pulled a dazed-looking coworker to his feet and navigated her way through the obnoxious men, declaring their truth or dare game complete. The mention of Julian's name had an immediate, chilling effect on the men, who quickly told them to go. In the car, Chloe apologized for using him and his brother's name, explaining she felt she had no other choice. He waved it off, saying that's what friends were for. Driving home to the empty penthouse, a sudden wave of loneliness washed over him. The system suggested a small act of rebellion. Acting on impulse, he pulled over in the West Village and went into a quiet bar for a drink. The unaccustomed alcohol went straight to his head. When he called for a car service, he was too unsteady to even get out of the car himself upon arriving home. He leaned back, his eyes closed, waiting for the housekeeper. The car door opened, But it wasn't the housekeeper. A familiar silhouette stood there for a moment before strong arms were lifting him. The scent of Julian, clean, sharp, and comforting, filled his senses. He opened his eyes to the sharp profile of Julian's face. Julian carried him upstairs without a word, his expression cold and hard, but his hold was unshakably steady. Leo pressed his face into his chest, rubbing against him like a cat. He murmured that he had missed him so much. Julian's chest rose and fell in a sharp breath. His voice was low and laced with hurt as he said that Leo only remembered him now, after drowning his sorrows over another man. The accusation was so unexpected it stunned Leo into silence. A profound sense of injustice washed over him, and his eyes filled with tears. Seeing him cry, Julian's anger dissolved. He gently placed Leo on the bed and began dabbing at his tears with a tissue. He apologized softly for being harsh. Leo, still upset, pushed his hand away and buried his face in Julian's expensive suit jacket, smearing tears and snot on the fabric. Julian sighed, a sound caught between exasperation and affection. After a moment, his head spinning, Leo felt Julian's hand gently stroking his back. Julian's voice was low as he asked if Leo really liked her that much, if seeing her with another man was enough to make him drink himself into this state. Dazed, Leo could barely process the words. He only knew that Julian was sad, and the thought caused a pang in his own chest. He reached up and cupped Julian's face, promising to always be with him. Julian's gaze sharpened. He pulled Leo into a fierce hug, his breath hot against Leo's ear as he rasped that Leo was the most important person in the world to him, and he must never lie to him. Leo nodded obediently in his arms and, turning his head, pressed a soft, lingering kiss to Julian's cheek. Julian froze. He pulled back slightly, his eyes dark and searching. He asked why Leo had kissed him. Leo blinked slowly, his mind clouded with alcohol and emotion. He whispered that Julian was his favorite person in the world. A storm seemed to gather in Julian's eyes. His chest heaved once, and then he crashed his lips down onto Leo's. His kiss was not gentle. It was a storm, a claim, a desperate and consuming thing that left Leo breathless and pliant in his arms. Felt more real than any dream. The next morning, he woke up alone. He immediately called for the system, asking if last night had been real. The system exploded in a stream of digital static and curses, calling him a devious, manipulative liar who had used the female lead to seduce the male lead for his own selfish ends. Leo didn't bother to argue. He went downstairs, half expecting to find Julian in the dining room. But the room was empty. A housekeeper told him that Julian had left for the airport at dawn. The system let out a sound of cruel laughter, gloating that Julian had obviously regretted his actions and fled. Leo ate his breakfast in silence. Later, when Ada came to pick up some documents Julian had signed, Leo went to the study to retrieve them. On the desk, he found a development proposal for a property called the Old Bailey Printing Works. It was the site of their former tenement building. The proposal detailed a plan to build luxury condos. The document, addressed to the property owner and lying on Julian's desk, made it clear. Julian had quietly bought the place where they had started, their first home together. He drove downtown, memories flooding his mind, Julian on an old bicycle, the wind in his hair as they coasted down the slope of the Williamsburg Bridge at sunset, sharing a single bowl of noodles in their cramped apartment. He knew a version of himself that the system, with all its data, could never comprehend. He knew the weight he held in Julian's heart. The building was still standing, renovated but familiar. He walked up the dim staircase, down the hallway cluttered with the debris of other people's lives, and stopped before their old red door. He took a key from his pocket, one he hadn't seen in years, and slid it into the lock, turned smoothly. Inside, everything was just as they had left it. A calendar with a smiling actress was still on the wall, as if time had frozen. He walked into the bedroom. A breeze blew the white curtains inward. The apartment was fully furnished, lived in. He lay down on the hard wooden bed, and the noise from the neighbor's washing machine was a familiar, grounding sound. The next morning, he ignored the missed calls on his phone and opened a news app. The headlines were all about Ethel Capital's successful acquisition of the German bank. He zoomed in on a photo of the signing ceremony. Julian sat at a long table, a polite, professional smile on his handsome face. Leo scrutinized his face, his neck, his hands. Then he tossed the phone aside and opened the closet. Inside were a few of Julian's old shirts. He pulled one out and buried his face in the fabric, inhaling a scent that was both strange and deeply familiar. He pulled the large shirt on over his body and lay back on the bed, the morning light filtering through the thin cotton. Surrounded by the ghost of Julian's presence, he closed his eyes, and his hand drifted downward. He whispered his name. He heard the lock turn, the sound of frantic footsteps, and then the man who occupied all his thoughts was standing in the doorway, looking breathless and disheveled from travel. Leo. Julian, after kissing him, had spent the rest of the night in his study, chain-smoking until dawn. He had taken a last-minute flight back to Germany, leaving his security detail with stricter instructions to watch Leo. When they reported they had lost him, Julian, who was in the middle of the signing ceremony, felt a wave of pure panic. He finished the proceedings on autopilot and immediately flew back. He pieced together Leo's destination from Ada's report of his mood after being in the study. On the way, he had rehearsed apologies, prepared for emotional blackmail, ready to do anything to keep Leo by his side. When he arrived, he thought he heard Leo call his name from inside. He threw the door open and strode in, calling out for him. And then he saw him, sprawled on their old bed, wrapped in his old shirt, pale legs exposed, eyes hazy with pleasure and tears, lips forming his name. Julian. He froze, his mind reeling. A hand, trembling slightly, reached out and tugged on the silk of his expensive tie, pulling him down. Julian, Leo whispered, "Take care of me." In that instant, everything clicked into place. The rivalry with Chloe wasn't real. It was a performance. And he, far from being angry, found himself overwhelmed with a fierce, soaring excitement. The squeak of the old bed frame was a constant rhythm for the rest of the day and through the night. Months later, on a private island, Leo was reading on the beach when the system announced, with a hint of surprise, that the female lead's romantic plotline had finally activated. With Ethan Vance. It made a strange kind of sense. Chloe had once told him that after the karaoke incident, she had filed a formal harassment complaint. The company, under Ethan's direction, had investigated and fired the men involved. Her respect for her boss had been growing ever since. Another 6 months passed. At the after-party celebrating the successful IPO of Chloe's project, Leo found the ballroom too crowded and escaped to the terrace with her. They leaned against the railing, watching Julian and Ethan chatting under the crystal chandeliers. On a whim, Leo asked her what she thought of his brother, hypothetically. Chloe gave him a knowing smile. She recalled that the very first time she met Julian, she heard him refer to himself as brother when speaking to Leo. That single word, she said, had defined his entire image for her. Leo asked what image that was. Chloe leaned in and whispered in his ear, "Possessive psycho brother." They both burst into laughter. Across the room, Julian seemed to sense it, his eyes finding Leo's. He raised an eyebrow and, with Ethan, began walking toward them. Above, the night sky was filled with stars, and a gentle breeze was blowing.